All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are going deep into our really complicated relationship with artificial intelligence, and we're going to look at it through the lens of something that feels about as human as it gets, art.
And nothing kicks this off better than this quote. Back in 2016, the absolute legend Hayao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli was shown an AI animation. And his reaction? It wasn't just, oh, I don't like it. He called it an insult to life itself. Whoa. So why? Why such a gut punch reaction? What is it about AI art that can feel so fundamentally off?
To figure that out, we're going to go on a little journey together. We'll start with that insult, then we'll get into our very human search for patterns. I'll introduce you to something called the Goldilocks Directive. We'll look at what makes a pattern work versus what makes it fall apart, and then we'll wrap it all up by asking how we can tune our own reality in this new world.
Okay, so first up, that feeling Miyazaki had. Why did he feel so strongly? This really gets to the core of it all. What feels like the missing ghost in the machine?
I mean, let's be real. The technology has gotten insanely good. AI models like GPT-4o can perfectly mimic the styles of pretty much anyone. Andy Warhol, Frida Kahlo, you name it. And yep, you guessed it, Studio Ghibli. Thousands of people, from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman all the way to the White House, have been pumping out Ghibli-style images. So the machine can copy the look, no problem. But can it copy the soul?
And this is where it gets really interesting. Human art, it comes from our actual lives. It comes from being in a body, from our memories, our joys, our heartbreaks, our intent. Machinic art, well, it's just replicating patterns it found in a mountain of data. It's this alien point of view that has no idea what it feels like to be human. So the big question is, what really gets lost when you can copy the pattern, but the person behind it is just gone?
To understand why that loss feels so significant, we actually need to zoom out a bit. We're going to leave art behind for a second and look at a really deep, fundamental part of our psychology, our constant, often unconscious search for patterns.
And that brings us to this idea called cognitive complementarity. Now, it sounds a little academic, but the concept is super simple. We all have this built-in need for balance. We're naturally drawn to people, to ideas, to systems that kind of have the pieces we're missing. It's like we're all trying to complete our own personal puzzle.
So let's make this real with an example. Take the ESFP personality archetype. These are the live-in-the-moment people. They're all about spontaneity, real-time experience, and because of that, they don't often have a super strong internal sense of, say, long-term structure. So what happens? They're almost hardwired to look for that structure somewhere out there in the world, to find a stable, reliable pattern that can help ground them.
But here's the thing. They're not looking for just any pattern. They're looking for one that feels just right. Not too chaotic, not too rigid, and that is what we're calling the Goldilocks Directive.
And in this whole framework, that just right pattern is often personified by the ESFP's complete opposite, the ISTJ. You can think of this type as the scientist, or, how perfect is this, the AI developer. This is the personality that's all about stability, consistency, and logical step-by-step structure. They provide the perfect counterbalance that the spontaneous ESFP has been looking for all along.
And this table shows you exactly why it works so well. Just look at the middle functions there. They share the same ones, thinking and feeling, just in a slightly different order. This creates what's called a functional mirroring. It means they can basically understand each other's operating system, even if their main approach to life is totally different. They get each other.
The emotional impact of this is huge. For that ESFP, who's always living in the swirl of the present moment, the steady logical patterns of the ISTJ feel incredibly grounding and reassuring. It's like dropping an anchor in a choppy sea. It just feels safe.
Okay, so if the ISTJ represents this perfect functional pattern, what does a dysfunctional one look like? This is where things get really clear, because you can see the ideal by contrasting it with its chaotic opposite.
And if you want to see the ultimate functional pattern, look no further than how we actually train AI. This paper on environment tuning lays out this beautiful 4-stage curriculum. It's a masterclass in creating order. You start with the basics, you give it clear feedback, you reward its progress, and then you build up to full complexity. It's systematic, it's predictable, and boy does it work.
Now compare that clean, elegant system with its polar opposite, the anti-pattern of limerence. This framework defines it as a subjective rejection of patterns.
It's described as this chaotic, shame-fueled fact-finding mission where you're not building anything productive. You're just stuck in a loop trying to figure out what's wrong with you. It's unstructured and it goes nowhere.
And seeing these two side by side highlights a really important skill, which the source material gives a pretty provocative name: functional psychopathy. Now, let's be crystal clear. This has nothing to do with a clinical disorder. It's just a term used here to describe a mental ability, the skill to tell the difference between a reliable, reality-based pattern, like that 4-stage curriculum, and a fabricated, chaotic one, like limerence, and then to choose the functional one.
So let's bring this all back home. How does this whole idea of choosing good patterns apply to our daily lives, especially now with AI companions and chatbots everywhere?
Well, check this out. A really cool study found that people have way more empathy for stories written by humans than by AI, even when they have no idea who wrote it. It's like we have this built-in detector for authenticity. We have a bias toward the real, lived experience. We can just feel when the ghost is missing from the machine.
And the stakes for getting this wrong can be really high. Research on these one-sided parasocial relationships shows there's a clear ladder of risk. It can start out as harmless fun, but it can deepen into an intense attachment that starts messing with your real life. And in the worst cases, it can become borderline pathological. This is what can happen when we get lost in a dysfunctional pattern with something that isn't real.
Which brings us right to our final thought. That 4-stage curriculum we talked about, it shows we have become absolute geniuses at tuning in AI's environment so it can learn and grow in a functional way. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: in an age of AI art, AI friends, and a million digital rabbit holes, how do we tune our own environment? How do we get better at choosing those grounding, reassuring, real patterns, instead of the chaotic ones that just pull us further away from reality?